If I could sit down with my younger self, the one that stepped into the gym 10 years ago, here's what I would tell him. Some of the lessons that I'll tell you are just from trial and error, some from failure, and some just from simply being an idiot. So I want to help you to avoid the mistakes that I've made so you get 10 years ahead of me. Lesson number one, don't start training with a hardcore bodybuilding plan. So first time I went to the gym was with my friend, and he had that really hardcore bodybuilding plan. My first session in the gym, we did bench press, and I think I started with like 30 or 40 kilograms, and then the drop sets would be with an empty bar. So literally 2 sets in, I couldn't even press the empty bar, and my friend helped me at the same time. So now imagine, as a 20-year-old, my friend is helping me with an empty bar. So that was not even a good look with people around you. It was a bit embarrassing, and also my body was completely shattered following that training session. So I was kind of discouraged from going back to the gym. And it's not that I didn't like training hard. I was doing Muay Thai and I really enjoyed like very high and intense training, but the bodybuilding side of things really put me off because I just couldn't see any benefit from getting myself to the point where I could not lift my hands for the rest of the day, to be frank. The lesson that I learned from that going all in and doing as much as you can once you just start your journey in the gym will just simply put you off, because I ended up feeling quite embarrassed by my ability, and that's just genuinely put me off from coming back to the gym, to be honest. Lesson number two, most gym injuries are actually coming from your ego rather than the exercises themselves. A lot of people are scared going to the gym because they will get injured. In my 10 to 11 years of lifting, the only injury from the gym that I had is the shoulder bursitis, and that was a little bit from being an idiot, because for weightlifting, my upper body was fairly weak, so I decided to kind of increase my volume of shoulder presses, and I was just simply doing shoulder presses 3 times a week, which just ended up being too much for my shoulder. When it flared up, I couldn't even lift my arm for a week, and driving was painful and things like that. But then that was not a traumatic injury, it's just like a bursa in my shoulder swelled up, and any movement was painful. And the lesson that I learned here, that injuries don't happen from exercises. Injuries happen from lack of recovery, ego lifting, and generally not paying attention to what your body is telling you. Lesson number 3, 1-hour sessions is much better than 2-hour sessions. So if you do a very long gym session, let's say you train for 2 hours, first of all, that session is not as effective after an hour because you get tired, you get a little bit like lazy, you don't want to push yourself that hard. And if you do push yourself quite hard, you end up really exhausting your body. Then it takes 2 days to recover. So what I do instead is I do 4 to 5 sessions that are roughly 60 minutes, and I still get my compound lifts in, and I still get some higher intensity work. However, the difference in between doing 1-hour session and 2-hour session is, first of all, that session energizes me. So if I do a session early in the morning for an hour, I have more energy through the day, and I'm more productive when it comes to creating these videos, writing scripts, and whatever other tasks that I have on mind. So if a 2-hour session would wipe me out, my whole day would be less productive. And you can still get like decent lifts, you can still progress with your strength with 1-hour sessions, and you're more likely to do them more frequently if you associate that with feeling good rather than being beaten up for 2 or 3 days. And the lesson here, that frequency of training will beat the duration of training that you have. However, if you can only make 3 times to the gym and you have 2 hours, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you train 2 hours, 5, 6 times a week, you're probably accumulating some fatigue that you don't want. Lesson number 4, I used to think that sleep is for the weak and overtraining doesn't really exist. But to be frank, Overtraining does exist, and the way I normally experience that is my sleep get disrupted, lower energy through the day, and I just don't feel like training, and I cannot lift the weights that I could before. So I start noticing that my overall performance is dropping down in work, in physical performance, and in mental capacity to do things or willingness to do things. So that's how overtraining manifests for me. That's something that I've noticed. If I do too much in the gym, it pretty much impacts every other factor of my life. The lesson that I've learned is that my idea of going to the gym is to feel better and be healthier. But if your workouts ended up wrecking your day-to-day life, so what's even the point of going to the gym? That's the lesson that I got to take away from that. Number 5, I used to think that training is all that matters when it comes to weight loss. So I would spend, like I said, 2-hour sessions. I would spend 40 minutes on the treadmill and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I did lose weight, but the only reason why I lost weight is because I significantly increased my calorie expenditure. I used to buy fat burners and things like that, which didn't really help much. So later I learned that eating in a calorie deficit is the single most important factor when it comes to weight loss. And in order to feel good and satiated, I learned that I need to eat higher protein diets. So the key takeaway from that if you want fat loss, don't focus on increasing your activity or buying fat burners. Make sure that you focus on the calorie intake that you're having, or improving what you're eating in general. Number 6, training with your mates can be fun, but it also can be a double-edged sword. Now, training with your friends is absolutely amazing. You have that accountability with your friends. You have to make to the gym session, but when it comes to males in particular, we do end up subconsciously competing with each other, and we want to lift more weight, so you want to be stronger than your friend is and things like that. So that's how injuries can happen. Like, I've been lucky while training with the friends, we haven't had any injuries, but generally you create a little bit of that competitiveness without even thinking about it. It's probably a male thing, and sometimes it's a good thing because it can help you to push your limits. Otherwise, it's not necessarily a best thing. I personally like training alone as much as I like training with my friends, but the quality of my workouts neither better or worse whether I'm training with friends or not. But if you need to train with your friends, just be cautious when you guys are trying to push the weights. Make sure that you're not participating in ego lifting and you're just focusing on the technique and form while you do that. Number 7, patience and technique wins long term. Olympic weightlifting has taught me that I shouldn't be pushing weights too high, and I should be focusing on the technique and working what would be considered like comfortable 80 to 90% range of 1 rep max, where you're just simply focusing on the technique. And to be honest, lifting within not even pushing to your max efforts actually helps you to build more strength. And being patient and developing a good technique will carry that for the rest of your lifetime. So it's worth investing your time upfront and learning the techniques correctly, because when it comes to weightlifting, the movements are quite complex. Snatch and clean and jerk, they're 2 complex movements, and you have to coordinate all your body. So you have to leave like the ego behind the door and just focus on the technique more than on lifting the heaviest weight possible, despite the competition being to lift the heaviest weight possible. And the lesson here is that you need to master the movement first, and the weight will follow your mastery of the movement. Number 8, fat burners is a scam, and I did mention that before in the weight loss part. I was someone who believed that buying all the fat burners will help you to burn all the excess body fat that I had and I didn't like. What I learned is that it just burned the holes through my wallet, and it didn't necessarily burn fat. So funny story, I would drop in a high caffeine tablet. I think it was grenade, fat burner or something like that. And then I would go to training and I would be wondering why I cannot fall asleep, despite me taking 2 cups of coffee, equal amount of caffeine, 6 p.m. before my training. So I couldn't fall asleep following that, and that was utterly stupid. And most of the weight loss actually comes from dietary adjustments, not from the fat burners that you are taking. So keep that in mind, that fat burners are not necessary for weight loss. So the lesson here that there is no magic pill. If the fat burners would work, no one would be overweight. And well, we have Ozempic now. It's completely different times, but it's not a fat burner. I would argue that's a appetite suppressor. Number 9, supplements will not save you from poor nutrition and lack of sleep. That's just the nature of things. If you look at creatine and it says it will help you to increase the strength, but all you do is sleep 6 hours and you don't eat a high protein diet, you don't have carbohydrates in your diet, which fuels the activity, you will not be able to gain strength because you're simply not allowing your body to recover with lack of sleep, and you're not providing nutrients to build itself stronger without protein and other macronutrients. That just helps to maintain optimal function of your body. So none of the supplements will make a significant difference unless you have your sleep and diets fixed. So the lesson here, that supplements meant to supplement your healthy lifestyle. They're not meant to fix the loopholes that you leave with lack of sleep and poor nutrition. Lesson number 10, the most important thing is actually showing up. If you don't feel like training, if you feel like you're tired, if you don't feel like eating that chicken, broccoli, and rice or whatever, you still have to do it if you want to be successful. So most of the time, the process can be boring, daunting, repetitive, and you may not even see the results for a few weeks. But once you push through that, and that low motivation phase or whatever it was, but you kept showing up, trust me, you will be happier than you've done it, rather than if you have stopped and fell back on your old habits. So the lesson here, that consistency matters more than anything else. So try to force yourself to go to the gym or eat the foods that may not seem to be the most tasty on the day, but you know it's good for you long term. And that's the mistakes that I learned through my own experience, and I hope that you will not make the same mistakes. But sometimes we just have to kind of experience things through our own skin, because I would be lying if I said that my coaches that I had haven't told me some of these things. I just had to experience them, and sometimes you repeat the same mistakes, like lack of sleep. You end up scrolling on your phone. You end up with 6 hours of sleep. As long as you don't do that every day, it's fine. If you can, avoid the mistakes that I made. And if you do some of them and you need to experience them to notice the real impact, it's fine as well. So let me know down in the comments if any of those mistakes have hit you, and if you need help to lose weight, just check the link down in the description and you can either book a call with me or follow my free guide to help you to lose jean size in the next 30 days. And if you stick that long with this video, YouTube thinks that you will like this one. Go and watch it, and I'll see you in the next one.